The soldier squeezes the trigger again and again. The recoil hammers his shoulder as shadows move through smoke only 50 yards away. There's no time to cycle slowly, no time to breathe, no time for parade ground perfection. In the chaos of World War II, survival belongs to the man who can fire fastest, not the one who shoots prettiest. 2 decades earlier, generals preached precision. 1 careful shot, 1 measured breath. Bolt actions ruled the trenches of the First World War, where distance and discipline defined combat. But by 1939, battlefields were faster, closer, and far less forgiving. So what happens when military tradition can't keep men alive? This is the story of 10 rifles that forced armies to confront that question and rewrite the rules of infantry warfare forever. And the final rifle on this list didn't just change the war, it changed every war after it. Number 10. M1903 Springfield. Precision versus modern firepower. The M1903 Springfield was America's pride, a rifle born from an era that worshipped precision. Machined steel, tight tolerances, and remarkable long-range accuracy made it a marksman's instrument. Soldiers were trained to fire slowly, deliberately, every shot calculated. On the range, it was nearly perfect. But war rarely behaves like a firing range. In the hedgerows of France and the jungles of the Pacific, engagements collapsed into sudden, violent encounters. Cycling a bolt between shots cost seconds men didn't have. Controlled fire met uncontrolled chaos. Doctrine demanded patience. The battlefield demanded speed. The Springfield proved deadly in steady hands, yet it revealed a dangerous truth. Accuracy alone was no longer enough, and somewhere beyond America's shores, a different philosophy of firepower was already taking shape. Number 9. Lee Enfield No.4 MKI. Speed inside tradition. If the Americans trusted precision, the British trusted rhythm. The Lee Enfield No. 4 MKI was still a bolt-action rifle, still rooted in the traditions of the last war, but it moved differently. Its smooth action and generous magazine allowed trained soldiers to fire with startling speed. During the famed Mad Minute, British riflemen could send a torrent of aimed rounds downrange, blurring the line between bolt-action discipline and semi-automatic intensity. It was innovation without surrender. Engineers hadn't abandoned the old framework. They had refined it to its mechanical limit. Soldiers adapted, cycling the bolt so quickly it seemed almost automatic. But even the fastest bolt still required a hand to work it. And on battlefields growing more chaotic by the month, some armies began wondering whether the future demanded something far more radical. Number 8. SVT-40. The risk of being ahead of your time. When the Soviets introduced the SVT-40, it was a glimpse of the future, issued not to specialists, but to ordinary infantry. A semi-automatic rifle meant to flood the battlefield with firepower. It promised to outpace any bolt-action opponent. On paper, it was revolutionary. In practice, it was fragile. The Eastern Front was not a laboratory. It was mud, snow, panic, and relentless retreat. The SVT-40 demanded maintenance and precision manufacturing that wartime industry struggled to provide. Under brutal conditions, its complexity became a liability. Many soldiers quietly preferred the older Mosin-Nagant. Slower, yes, but brutally dependable. The lesson was unforgiving. Innovation means nothing if it cannot survive the elements, or fear itself, because the next rifle would prove that semi-automatic fire wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. Number 7. M1 Garand. The rifle that outpaced the enemy. When American troops landed in North Africa and later stormed the beaches of Europe, they carried something no other major army had fully embraced: a standard-issue semi-automatic rifle. The M1 Garand did not ask soldiers to work a bolt between shots. It simply kept firing. 8 rounds, as fast as a man could pull the trigger, against enemies limited to 5 carefully cycled shots. German soldiers noticed. Reports from the front spoke of overwhelming American firepower, of units that seemed to possess an unnatural volume of rifle fire. What they were hearing was industrial power translated into battlefield dominance. The United States had not just designed a better rifle, it had built the factories to place it in millions of hands. On the battlefields of Europe, doctrine shifted in real time. Semi-automatic fire became normal, and suddenly the old bolt-action standard began to look dangerously outdated. Number 6. Kar 98K, the last of the old guard. The Kar 98K was the embodiment of German marksmanship, precise, disciplined, and mechanically superb. Short, rugged, and devastatingly accurate, it reflected a military culture that valued control over chaos. In trained hands, it was lethal at distance, a rifle built for deliberate, decisive shots. But by the middle of the war, precision alone could not drown out the sound of 8-round American volleys. However refined the Kar 98K was, it still required a bolt to be worked after every shot. Against enemies armed with semi-automatics, that pause became a vulnerability measured in heartbeats. The rifle performed exactly as doctrine intended. The problem was that doctrine had fallen behind the tempo of modern war, and even Germany would soon be forced to confront that reality. Number 5. Gewehr 43. Desperation forces evolution. By 1943, denial was no longer an option. German troops facing American and Soviet forces understood the imbalance. The answer arrived as the Gewehr 43, a semi-automatic rifle born not from confidence, but from pressure. It was Germany's attempt to match the Garand's relentless firepower, developed while the Reich was already fighting for survival. The design worked, but it lacked the refinement of earlier German engineering triumphs. Corners were cut, production was hurried. Pride gave way to urgency. What mattered now was not perfection, but parity. The Gewehr 43 marked a turning point. Doctrine, once rigid and assured, bent beneath the weight of battlefield reality. Semi-automatic rifles were no longer experimental, they were essential. And as the firepower race intensified, the bolt-action rifle began to look less like tradition and more like a relic. Number 4. M1 Carbine. Mobility over power. Not every soldier on the battlefield was a front-line rifleman. Radio operators, truck drivers, paratroopers, officers, many needed something lighter than a full-sized battle rifle. The M1 Carbine answered that call. Compact, lightweight, and easy to handle, it offered 15 rounds in a package that felt closer to a tool than a burden. Critics dismissed it. The .30 carbine cartridge lacked the raw stopping power of traditional rifles, and purists questioned its battlefield legitimacy. But war is not fought in theory. In practice, its portability transformed rear echelon troops into credible fighting forces. It gave mobility to men who previously carried little more than pistols. The carbine signaled a quiet shift. Rifles no longer had to be heavy to be effective. And that idea would soon explode into something far more radical. Number 3. St. G44, the birth of the assault rifle. Then came a weapon that did not refine old ideas. It discarded them. The St. G44 was built around an intermediate cartridge, more powerful than a pistol round, but lighter and more controllable than a full rifle cartridge. It was select fire, capable of both semi-automatic precision and automatic suppression. And it was designed for the distances soldiers actually fought, at under 300 meters, not the theoretical ranges celebrated on pre-war parade grounds. Even its existence was controversial. Hitler initially resisted the concept, clinging to traditional rifle doctrine and production priorities. To some, it was a dangerous distraction. But battlefield math could not be ignored. Most engagements were close, chaotic, and fluid. Soldiers needed volume, mobility, and control in a single weapon. The SATE G44 delivered all three. It became the blueprint for a new class of firearm, the assault rifle. And yet, even this revolutionary weapon wasn't the final evolution, because one more rifle would take the lessons of the SATE G44 and spread them across the entire planet. Number 2. Fen-Pha, the globalization of firepower. By the late 1940s, the world had absorbed the lessons of World War II. Firepower was no longer a theory, it was doctrine. The Fen-Pha emerged from that realization, a battle rifle adopted by dozens of nations and carried across continents. Chambered in a full power cartridge yet fed from a detachable magazine, it blended old-school range with modern rapid fire. It became known as the right arm of the free world. That nickname was not poetic, it was geopolitical. From Europe to Africa to the Falklands, the Pha symbolized a new global standard. Nations no longer debated bolt versus semi-auto. That argument was over. The question now was how to scale modern firepower across entire alliances. The Pha proved the rifle revolution of Dewey was permanent. But permanence does not mean finality, because one design would soon strip away even this balance of power and recoil and redefine infantry combat forever. Number 1. AK-47, the permanent shift. When the war ended, the lessons did not. They were studied, refined, and simplified. The AK-47 emerged from the wreckage, built on the assault rifle principles proven in World War II. It embraced the intermediate cartridge. It accepted that most firefights were fast, close, and unforgiving. But where others chased precision engineering, the AK pursued something more ruthless: reliability. Loose tolerances replaced delicate machining. Rugged simplicity replaced mechanical elegance. It could endure mud, sand, neglect, and fear. And it could be produced in staggering numbers, exported not just as a weapon, but as an ideology. The culture of the rifle changed. Precision marksmanship gave way to sustained, controllable fire. Volume and durability mattered more than perfection. World War II rifles did not merely win battles, they ended an era. The war proved something unsettling: firepower beats tradition. And from that point forward, infantry combat would never again be defined by the slow squeeze of a bolt.